I love Omniscient Reader. It's a spectacular series with great world building, fantastic characters, interesting and engaging action, and a very fun plot. For those unaware, Omniscient Reader is a series that focuses on our main character, Doja Kim, a down-on-his-luck character struggling to get along. With his life and job kind of sucking, the biggest thing he has to look forward to is his favorite serialized web novel, 3 Ways to Survive the Apocalypse. We start the series with the last chapter of the novel, simply saying, there are 3 ways to survive the apocalypse. Everything is becoming unclear now, but one thing is certain. If you're reading this, you will survive. And soon enough, that's exactly what starts to occur, as the world that was once very similar to our own shifts into one of the novels. Actually, the exact same as the novel, with the same character, same system, and same scenarios. I've been an avid reader ever since the English translation dropped. By the way, no spoilers in the comments, I will be deleting spoilers. So it always kinda sucked when I couldn't find a good video topic for this series. And every time someone suggested it, I would get frustrated. Since I would love to, but I had no clue how to make one. That is, until today. Today isn't about character development or explaining how the world works or themes. Actually, I'm not entirely sure what today is about. It's more of a collection of thoughts than an actual theory, some fun and interesting bits of information that when pieced together might be something interesting and fun. First, we need to start out with our main character, Doja Kim, and the world of Omniscient Reader. The world the series presents is a scary, unpredictable world, full of dangers lurking behind every corner, unknown rules and dangerous situations. The biggest reason that our main character is able to not only survive, but thrive, is his knowledge of his favorite story, 3 Ways to Survive the Apocalypse. But I hear you. If it only took reading a story to survive, then why aren't more people surviving? Well, you're not wrong, but you're also not right. There are a couple reasons that a ton of people aren't thriving like our main character. The biggest one being, Doja Kim is the biggest nerd ever. He's 3 Ways to Survive the Apocalypse's biggest, and probably only fan. 3,149 chapters, 10 years. That's how long this series has been around for. If you need a comparison, An Ordinary has only been around for a little more than 5 years. Tower of God has been around for 7, and they don't have half as many episodes as 3 Ways to Survive the Apocalypse. Granted, that's mainly because it's not a web comic, it's just a novel, but still, this series has been around for a long time. Yet we see most people stop reading it after around chapter 50. Everyone except our main character, Doja Kim, who was the only person who's read all 3,149 chapters, leaving a comment on every single one of them. The reason this is important is because there's a prevalent theory going around, and by prevalent I mean I saw it on Instagram like twice, that Doja Kim is somehow the author of the story 3 Ways to Survive the Apocalypse. While that may at first appear to be a stretch, I wouldn't say it's out of the realm of possibility. Remember, the whole plot of Omniscient Reader is the genre changing, from whatever boring life they had before, to a dangerous and incredibly chaotic world of a web novel. So much so that the characters, weapons, mechanics, scenarios, and practically plot lines are all pretty much the same. The only difference is that Doja Kim and anything he does influences the plot in such a way where it changes. The new world has different rules, and I wouldn't necessarily say that sending a novel back in time would be the toughest thing. We hear Doja Kim explain that it was a story written for me and only me. With this theory, that kind of makes sense. The story would be written by him for him. We even see him think, I tried recommending this series to others, but they just criticized me. People would either claim that I was the author or call me an attention seeker. Interesting. However, there are a couple holes in this theory. First, while I don't necessarily believe sending a novel back in time is out of the realm of possibility, since the story itself is about someone who keeps on regressing back to the start of scenarios when he dies, However, I feel like it is a little bit of a stretch. He would have to go back in time 10 years plus however long these scenarios take, to update a story over 10 years and 3,149 chapters. And while this could have been the case, since we see that the story is important to Doja Kim, being the light in his life when he's being bullied in school, when he failed his entrance exams, when he was stationed in the front lines during his military service, or when he was working as an unstable contract worker. This series was often what kept him going. What's more problematic is the story of 3 Ways to Survive the Apocalypse itself. The story focuses on Jun Yuk-yu. I hope I said that right, but I probably didn't. The Regressor. Someone who regresses when he dies, basically starting over from when everything hit the fan. The problem is that 3 Ways to Survive the Apocalypse has its main character regress multiple times. We hear that it's in the double digits, and the largest number I could find was around 12 regressions. The reason this is important is because our story doesn't start at the beginning with no regressions, or at the end with 13 regressions, or whatever regression he's on. Our story starts on his 3rd regression, which is bizarre. I would have believed it a little more if we started wherever the author ended. That way Doja Kim could have just listened to Jun Yuk-yu's life and wrote it down and sent it back in time. But not even Jun Yuk knows about his other regressions. That's why this kinda led me down to think that Doja Kim isn't the author. Sure, this could be self-fulfilling nonsense, but I don't think the series would do that. Alright, since that theory is out the window, I started to think of other little theories for the author and our main character. And something that caught my eye was this panel. It's a panel showing the 10 evils of the novel 3 Ways to Survive the Apocalypse, them being the main villains of that novel. And I noticed the one at the top, the one that appears to be the possible final evil. At first, that hair and collar shirt made me think of Doja Kim. I mean, his swoopy hair and collar shirt and kind of thinner body is kind of a staple of him, even if he kind of looks like Jun Yuk. However, it really wouldn't make any sense for him to be one of the 10 evils, because Doja Kim isn't part of the story. Anything that Doja Kim doesn't know is usually consequences of his actions. Since he isn't part of the story, whenever he does something that's not supposed to happen, he typically changes the story in a way that he doesn't know what's going to happen. For example, any of the characters he saves, or any of the characters who have read a small amount of 3 Ways to Survive the Apocalypse, which we see isn't a lot of them. But let's talk about the author, shall we? I doubt the author is human. Yeah, sure, he did go 10 years releasing a web novel that only one person read, but that could just be determination, a drive to see his story finish, or just a hobby, not something he relied on money for. But still, 10 years and only one fan. I doubt I could do Shy Chef for 10 years with only one fan. I doubt I could do it for a year with one fan. By the way, thank you for 10k subs. Very happy, very excited. Great, worthwhile. I love it, everything. You're great. I love you guys. But what else is worth analyzing is the email that was sent at the beginning of the series. The email had the story attached to it, and it was deleted everywhere else. As the author puts it, starting at 7 p.m. today, 3 Ways to Survive the Apocalypse will become paid content. This will help you. I wish you all the best. Of course, the author knew what was about to come, but how? Did he somehow have some future vision? Unlikely, since those powers didn't start to come about until the main scenario presented itself. So what if our author isn't human, but something a little more powerful? Well, what could he be? Surely not a monster or a dogabe. But what else is there? Constellations. They are the most mysterious beings in 3 Ways to Survive the Apocalypse, and the masterminds behind the tragedy who livestream the scenarios from across the universe. Other than that description, constellations aren't really explained to us a bunch, and there's only really one other time when they are, and that's when Doja Kim talks about them. Stories are exactly that, an account of incidents or events. In the world of Starstream, it's a source of power. So constellations without stories cannot earn coins. And constellations cannot support new incarnations without any coins. When a constellation fails to spread his story through their incarnation, they are forgotten and perished. Here we learn a couple things. That constellations are kind of like Patreons. They support their people they're interested in by giving them coins, items, and skills. There are a couple reasons they do this. One could be just a person to root for, not to mention a sense of pride, imagining supporting someone who got to the end, but also a way to advertise who you are in a sense. Who's that incarnation's constellation? Oh, you didn't hear? It's Defense Master, or it's the Abyssal Dragon of the Black Flame, or it's the Demonic Judge of Fire. When you have an incarnation that does really well, of course more people are going to want to hear about their constellation. And then they get more power. But what also is important to take away from that is that constellations aren't all powerful. Now, the constellation interactions are some of my favorite little moments in Omniscient Reader. We hear their 2 cents in any given situation. Some are approving, some are questioning, some are endlessly baking cookies for some reason. But there are 4 that are more important than most. They're the 4 that request to be Doja Kim supporting constellations. We hear Doja Kim explain most of them, as well as give their real names since they use nicknames to mask who they are. The Abyssal Black Flame Dragon, leader of the Black Cloud constellation group, as well as giving a boost to strength and vitality in return for going slowly insane the more he uses power. The Demonic Judge of Fire, which is surprisingly the Archangel Uriel, and the Prisoner of the Golden Headband, which is Sun Wukong from Journey to the West, and is constantly referenced in a lot of anime and such. It would make sense that these guys would be ever present in the story. Since they're relatively popular, they would have enough coins to be constantly giving Doja Kim like 100 coins per chapter. But what's also interesting is the other constellation I didn't mention. The Secretive Plotter, to which Doja Kim, the #1 3-way Survive the Apocalypse fan, has no clue who he is. But he's pretty quick to the draw with every other constellation, so why not this one? My first thought was that it was Doja Kim himself, as he's a pretty secretive person, keeping many things a secret from the world, his companions, and such. And he's constantly plotting things. However, that gets thrown out pretty quickly with some basic logic. If he knew he wouldn't want a supporting constellation, why would he try to be his own supporting constellation? Also, the secretive plotter doesn't seem to know what Doja Kim is planning, or seemingly his backstory. But he also seems to know a lot about the world. Also, seemingly expects a lot out of Doja Kim and approving of a lot of his plans and methods. I really wanted to make an Omniscient Reader video. So when rereading, I noticed the secretive plotter. The series likes to toy around with joke constellations. However, the secretive plotter doesn't really seem to be one. He appears constantly, and often likes to hear Doja Kim think out loud or when plot occurs. It strangely feels like the secretive plotter is the most human constellation out of the 4 that are constantly appearing. So what if the secretive plotter is the author? We know that the author isn't human. And while there have been constellations that were human, there's an emphasis on were. And while we're unsure of how much actual power these constellations have, I wouldn't doubt future vision, as the secretive plotter might look ahead to which systems are next on the chopping block, giving anyone a chance to get ahead. This also explains why the secretive plotter seems so interested in Doja Kim. Also why Doja Kim has never heard of him. He didn't make an appearance in his own story as he didn't see a need to. And just take a look at his name, as these names are clues. The secretive plotter? What bigger plot is there than training a person 10 years before an event even happens with a story of the future? And it's a secret to everyone. No one knows what's gonna happen except him. That's also why he keeps publishing his story when only one person reads it. Also why he chooses Doja Kim. He knows Doja Kim. Doja Kim comments on every chapter with "Great job, thanks for making the story. I forgot what he put, I didn't put it in the script." But the bigger question is why? It seems like a lot of effort just to give your incarnation a edge, right? Why would any constellation choose an incarnation? Because if you manage to choose the one that leads the way, the one that's the driving force in the show, you wouldn't only get a sense of pride, but you're sure to be remembered. And recall, stories are power to these guys. I'm sure the secretive plotter plotted something a little more in advance than most of his competitors. Scouting out a location, making a story for many to read, and then choosing the ones who did read it. Only to have one person reading it, or one person reading all of it. I don't know if this theory is correct. It's probably wildly incorrect, but I really love Omniscient Reader, and had a blast writing this script and rereading this story. But that's all for today. So, like always, thank you for watching, and I hope I'll see you next week. Take care.